Welcome to the Fellowship of Former Christian Scientists virtual conference. Why is Christian Science still influencing my faith? We're so glad you're here. And we have people zooming in from around the country, even the globe, to walk together in recovery. My name is Catherine Baimesha, and I'm the founder and director of the Fellowship of Former Christian Scientists. And we really hope that you'll engage this weekend, that you will really benefit from the different presentations and sessions, that you'll really meet some other former Christian Scientists, engage in our small group discussion, ask questions of the presenters, and even engage in our chat. You can say hi or ask a question in the chat section there, and it's just a really great way to relate. So we hope this is a really meaningful time. I know we wish that we could meet together in person, but you know, there's a lot of benefit to meeting virtually here. And in fact, we've had more people be able to come, which has been really great. And we're really excited for that. Also, we're going to be highlighting our Get Wise project this weekend. The Get Wise project is a new program that we've launched this year that really addresses the psychological damage that comes from years of indoctrination in Christian Science. And we have been able to host some webinars and some support groups that really have been lifelines for people coming out of Christian Science. And so we're really excited to be able to welcome a larger audience. Many of these projects we've been collaborating with the Secular Ex-Christian Scientist site. And so we have people coming from different perspectives and backgrounds this weekend, and we're really excited for that. We have some people who are going to be really doubting faith and really wanting to ask questions. And I just want to say that you're really welcome here. We're really glad that you're asking these important questions, and we're really happy to be walking together. Some other people are coming who have left Christian Science and would consider themselves a Christian, but they still have some questions about faith. You know, we're really glad that you're here. This is a great place to sort through these things and untangle some things. Most of us find that even years after leaving Christian Science, we struggle with the bondage. And this is a great place to take steps towards freedom. There's other people here who know a Christian Scientist that really have a burden to help them consider leaving Christian Science. And so we're really glad you're here, and we're really thankful and hope that you can just benefit a lot from just listening into the conversation and learning, being equipped to know how to challenge and invite people into another way of thinking. So wherever you're coming from, I hope that you can really encourage each other in the journey. We've all suffered a lot, and so be kind to each other. Also be kind to yourself. This is going to be a lot to take in. It may feel overwhelming sometimes, and you know that's the way we all feel. So if you need to take a moment, if you're being triggered or you feel heightened emotions, feel free to take a break. Go take a walk, call a friend, and then come back for the next session. So be kind to yourself. We're glad you're here, and I'm now going to introduce to you my friend and cohort, FFCS board member Chris Smith.
Hi folks, welcome to the FFCS National Conference. We are glad you're here. Normally I say, so good to see you, but I can't see you. You can see me. But I can't tell you how excited we are to be here finally. We have been thinking about this conference, planning for this conference, maybe not since the day after the last conference 2 years ago. We need about a week or two break, but since then we've been thinking about the conference. And we have been looking forward to it. I wondered what was going to happen with the pandemic in the middle there, but we're excited to be at this place and finally ready to launch. I am, as Katie mentioned, I've been on the board for the last 5 years of FFCS. It's been a great experience. I want to say on behalf of the board, welcome to you. I also serve as a pastor here in St. Louis at Covenant Presbyterian Church, and we're glad that you're here. You know, it is our sincere desire for you over the next few days that you would find this conference a tremendous encouragement, that would be a real benefit to you. I promise you we have a lot of good content that you're going to hear. You're going to have some great times sharing and talking with others. in some of our small group sharing sessions as well. And I would imagine that at times during the conference, or certainly by the end of the conference, you're going to feel filled up and overwhelmed, and maybe just your head spinning, like you don't have room for one more piece of information. Katie's words were good, that you need to rest and take it easy, but I want to encourage you to do something as well as rest, and that is to reflect. You have an opportunity this weekend, as things get stirred up, as you're learning new things, gaining new insights, even as you're hearing things come out of your own mouth, sharing things that you didn't know were in there, so that those things don't get lost, swept away in the tide of this weekend. I want to encourage you, both during the weekend once or twice, maybe after a session or during a lunch break or in the evenings once sessions have wrapped up, and certainly at the end of the conference when it's all done, I want to encourage you to take some time to reflect. If you're like me, I would imagine the moment you shut down your web browser, close your computer, there are all kinds of things barking at you for your attention and needing you to be on site right then and doing what you need to do next. But I want to encourage you to set aside a little bit of a buffer where when you finish a session or as it comes to the end of the conference, that as you close down your computer, that you just sit and reflect. Maybe just 5 minutes of quiet with a pen and a paper, and write some things down that you've been learning, things that you want to revisit, insights that you have, questions that you don't want to forget, so that you can harvest some of the insights and experiences that you've had from this weekend. I now have the distinct privilege and honor of introducing to you Bob and Judy Pardon, who are going to be our main speakers this weekend. For those of you who were here last year at the conference, or 2 years ago at the conference, you remember Bob and Judy and how helpful the material that they shared was, as well as just being with us was fantastic. And we're thrilled to have them speaking again at the conference this year. Bob and Judy, they run an institute called the New England Institute for Religious Research, and they study all kinds of alternative religions and cults, not just in the United States, but around the world. Bob is the director and founder, and Judy serves as the associate director as well. Bob is a pastor. Judy has a degree in counseling, and they have just extensive experience, decades of experience working with folks coming out of cults and harmful religious environments. They have such a wealth of wisdom, and I want to tell you, they have devoted themselves to learning particularly about Christian Science and about how they can be most helpful to us. Yeah, I can't tell you how much of a privilege it is for us to have someone of the caliber of Bob and Judy Pardon speaking to us this weekend. So it's my honor and my distinct privilege to introduce to you Bob and Judy Pardon. Have a great weekend.
This is our first presentation, our first workshop for the Fellowship of Former Christian Scientists Conference, and we're dealing with, in this one in particular, what is faith? What is it and why is it important? Now, just a couple of things in regards to where Judy and I are coming from. I think, as most of you know, we are committed Christians, but having said that, we know that coming out of a destructive group is more than just praying more, believing in something, getting your theology right, etc., etc., etc. But we wanted to just let you know that in advance. And since this is sponsored by Fellowship of Former Christian Scientists, which has a Christian basis to it, then we're going to be quoting some Bible verses where we've done other webinars, and that is just strictly from a psychological point of view. So this is going to be a combination of both.
Having said that, we are not here to tell you what to believe, but we wanted you to know that we're coming from a Christian perspective.
So the definition of faith: strong belief or trust. That comes from the Webster Dictionary, and it does not matter whether it's belief in a person or trust in a person, trust in little green men that live in outer space and eat grilled cheese sandwiches, or a belief in God. So it's just talking about some kind of strong belief or trust. Now, the next definition comes from the fountain of wisdom and all that is true, Wikipedia.
Faith, derived from the Latin fides and Old French fade, is confidence or trust in a person, thing, or a concept. In the context of religion, one can define faith as belief in a God or in the doctrines or teachings of religion. Religious people often think of faith as confidence based on a perceived degree of warrant, while others who are more skeptical of religion tend to think of faith as simply belief without evidence.
So notice here that faith is defined outside of Christianity or any religion and without evidence. It has no evidence. That's essentially how biblical Christianity or faith in any other religious system would be perceived. So belief in biblical Christianity or religion is often seen as being blind, anti-rational, anti-intellectual, and unscientific. And the implication is that faith is a blind hope that something is real. It is the opposite of a fact-based, repeatable experimentation. Now, as we continue here, it's important to understand the difference between pure science and what is called scientism. Some of you might have heard this before. One is based upon empirical evidence and observation. The other is filled with philosophical assumptions.
So science is systems of knowledge of the physical or material world based on facts obtained through observation and experimentation, where scientism is the view that the hard sciences alone have the intellectual authority to give us knowledge of reality.
Now, this is just in the air in which we breathe. It's part of our culture. Science has taken on more and more of the way to understand and know truth than any other system that is available. Only it's not science, it's scientism that has these philosophical assumptions there. So notice that scientism, having these philosophical assumptions, they cannot be proven by evidence or observation by science itself. So rather than leading to a deeper understanding of the universe for us, this worldview actually undermines real science and marginalizes morality and religion. Morality and religion is just opinion. It's just your opinion against my opinion. There's no way to verify it one way or the other. But when you talk about science, then science is what gives us truth. That is the belief of scientism. And you cannot use science in order to prove scientism. Worldviews. So what we want to do is back up a little bit here and talk about a worldview which is larger in regards to speaking about faith itself.
The definition of a worldview? What is a worldview? As the word itself suggests, a worldview is an overall view of the world. It's not a physical view of the world, but rather a philosophical view, an all-encompassing perspective on everything that exists and matters to us. A worldview impacts every part of your life.
So a worldview, when you think about it, it's like a set of glasses that you put on that helps you to be able to see, but also a worldview is something that everyone has, and it has philosophical assumptions. Philosophical assumptions are not a bad thing. It's only when it masquerades as being the ultimate arbiter or the ultimate source of all truth. There are different worldviews. Some worldviews are right. Some worldviews are wrong. And we could, if we have more time to go into that, we could explain that more. But scientism, which pretends to be science, is actually a worldview that masquerades as science. So look at this little chart here. This is a good depiction of it, of what a worldview is. This tree here, the roots of the tree is the assumption about reality. That's the worldview itself. Often our unconscious assumptions about the origin and destiny of life, the nature of God, God's purposes, if they are known. Then you've got the trunk. The trunk are the basic beliefs of which we are self-aware. And they come out of this worldview. And this would be the conscious, broad beliefs about how we fit into life, how we deal with evil. These beliefs are often vague, they're not really commonly articulated. Many times Judy will say that many individuals may have a faith system, they know what they believe, but they don't know why they believe it. Or they might not even be able to articulate what their faith system is. Then you've got the branches. The branches are the guiding principles and attitudes that are fed by the roots through the trunk. These are general conclusions about the value of people, our responsibility towards them, the weak and the needy, creation itself, etc. And then last of all, you have behavior, which is your personal decisions that you make, the way that you act, and also dealing in terms of a larger societal or some corporation. This is the fruit. So it's how we act on a daily basis. It's our popular culture. It might be the content of a political system, public education, rulings by the Supreme Court, media priorities. These are all the fruit of the roots of the worldview itself. So everybody has a worldview, whether it is known and chosen or not. And as I said, it's a set of glasses that you see things through. This is a faith system, something you implicitly trust.
So, and part of the difficulty with the worldview is very often we only live where the behavior is, and we don't understand the roots, where it comes from, why we believe the things that we do, why we function in the way that we function. An example of that would be someone saying, well, I know human beings are inherently good. They really are all good. It's just covered up by some of the things that society has taught us or bad things that have happened to them. But where does that belief come from? It's interestingly, I have a grandson. If I asked him when he was little, if I had asked him that question, he would just say, I don't know, Grandma, I just knowed it. Well, unfortunately, that's not a very good answer. And so we need to be able to think through what our worldview is and where it came from, what the roots of it are.
Okay, so it's important to realize that all humans, indeed, it is the essence of being human, operate with some faith system,
Right.
either explicitly or implicitly, known or unknown, thought through or not thought through at all.
And unfortunately, in this day and age, many people don't think through what their faith system is, what they have faith in, or why.
So this is a quote by a man named Murray Morman, and I thought it was really good, so I included it here for us. The foundations of a worldview profoundly affect our personal lives as well as every institution of society. Political parties, social policies, educational philosophies, views of philanthropy, nothing remains untouched. And so for this reason and others, it's important to choose wisely. So these are actually faith systems, like a body of beliefs, doctrine. It's not talking here about faith in a person, which is much more focused. This is just accepting a larger way to understand reality itself.
The most important question about reality then is, what is it? Rather than the narrower, what does it look like to you from your current angle of limited human experience?
Again, Murray Morman.
From Mary Baker Eddy. Mind's control over the universe, including man, is no longer an open question, but is demonstrable science.
Astonishing. This is absolutely what we would call scientism. It is no longer an open question, but is demonstratable science. This is a worldview, men and women. It is a faith system. So from the XCS site, this quote here poignantly describes embracing the CS faith system. This fellow writes, "The very religion that was supposed to be helping me was in fact making my life a daily mental hell. And all the programming that went with having studied the religion all those years, my mental anguish was simply mortal mind running away with itself, or the condescending attitude of other Christian scientists. You're only going through a phase, etc. But where do you turn when the religion you grew up in is a daily nightmare?
Some of the aspects of the Christian Science worldview, which all of you will be familiar with. The entire material world is unreal, illusory. Matter has no real existence, even in the mind. It is an illusion held by an illusion, mortal mind. The senses are deceitful and false, and the only source of evil and error. Sin and evil are no thing, unreal and delusion. Suffering, disease, and death are illusory and only appear to exist due to lack of faith. True faith eliminates pain, suffering, and death. And I am sure most of you have struggled at times with blaming yourself for not having true faith, for falling short because you do have pain or you do have suffering and can't reconcile that. So you're living in mortal mind, and there's no escape from that at times.
And so you want to think of this in terms of indoctrination. Now, not indoctrination in the sense that you believe something prior to this. You were raised in Christian Science. So this is the world that you grew up in.
Right, that's right.
It is reality. It was reinforced by family, friends, schooling, church, all of those things reinforce this. This is the formation of an original worldview. And it's rather like, some of you might have seen a movie a number of years ago in 1998 that had Jim Carrey in it called The Truman Show, where his whole life is on public display, and it is a reality show that is not real. And he doesn't know it. Everyone knows it's not real except for him.
That's right.
He believes it is real. That is a worldview that he was raised in. So what is real? What is real? Authentic faith. What is it? What's really authentic faith and trust? Look at this quote from Mary Baker Eddy.
Keep your mind so filled with truth and love that sin, disease, and death cannot enter them.
Amazing. So, this is actually like the miracle on 34th Street that is shown at Christmas time, where the little girl proclaims her belief in Santa Claus by saying, I believe. It's silly, but I believe. Well, this is but one example of how faith is often portrayed in our culture as a blind leap into oblivion, deciding to believe for no reason at all.
And faith truly is only as good as what you put your faith in. And this reminds us of a situation when we were meeting with the head of the Mormon missionaries many, many years ago. He was the president of all the Mormon missionaries on the East Coast. And he was a corporate lawyer and was out on the missionary field in New England. And we were meeting, and he said that these were his exact words: even if you can prove to me without a shadow of or an innuendo of doubt that Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, is a fraud, I'm still going to believe it. And we thought, where do we go from here? There's no open mind here. There's no way to there is no evidence that he will accept of reality.
Sadly, that's where a lot of people are. Well, what then is faith? Well, historically, biblical Christianity has answered that question by distinguishing three main elements that together define an authentic faith system. So trust or faith in any person, belief, or thing actually consists of three components that are important to identify. And we utilize all of this without even thinking about it. But this is how really authentic faith develops. The three Latin words have been used to identify these three components. One is called notitia, or knowledge, a sensus, or assent, and fiducia, or trust. This is where we get our word fiduciary from, or other legal terms along these lines. A sensus is just essentially to agree with something. So
knowledge, or notitia, this is the person, belief, or object that is actually believed in based on the study of information, such as historical documentation, eyewitness accounts, and/or experimentation. Knowledge is made up of factual evidence, circumstantial evidence, and multiple eyewitnesses.
So if you remember in the Gospel of John, John says, "These things have been written so that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God." So assent, a census. After knowledge, you have assent, and it's not enough to just know something, person, belief, or thing, but also assent is the conviction that the knowledge is true.
So you now agree with the knowledge. You have either studied it or maybe just taken it in, but hopefully you've checked it out and you believe that it's true.
You might be mistaken,
Yep.
but the point is that you have a body of knowledge. It might be about a person, a place, a thing, and you believe that it's accurate. You believe that it's true. The next thing is trust, or fiducia. So these build on each other. Knowledge comes first, then you've got the senses, the assent to that knowledge, then you've got trust that has to be, if it's going to lead to something that is really solid. So trust takes the knowledge assented to and incorporates it into a complete reliance or dependence. This, men and women, is a worldview.
Now, one of the difficulties multi-generational, second-generational, multi-generational folks have in any situation is that they're born into the worldview. They don't choose it for themselves. They are born into it. It's the only understanding of the world in the way that it exists that they've ever seen or know about. So it's a little more difficult to because we would always recommend to people that when you have knowledge, you check it out. You do research, you ask people, you do all the things that you can do to prove to yourself that the knowledge is real and true. But you can't do that when you're born into a system. You just belong to it.
So you could, in regards to the whole assent, having this body of knowledge and trying to determine its truthfulness or not, you could know all about Area 51, flying saucers, UFOs, saucers that are actually housed there on Area 51. So you know about Area 51 and all the lore that surrounds it. This is knowledge. But you may also not agree to the idea that an alien spaceship is housed there. That would be the assent or the trust or the assent itself, saying that, yeah, I believe that this knowledge is true. But you wouldn't go, if you don't have that assent, you would not go then on to trust. So let us give you another example of this here. Faith and probability, which is it? Well, most people have not had a rocking chair collapse underneath them. I would assume that most of you have not. So the facts are when you sit in a rocking chair, it looks real and solid. Circumstantially, you know that it's been built by a reputable company and there have been many sales over the years. People are satisfied with the product. And then the witnesses, there's no one has reported to you that it has collapsed underneath them. It seemed to be a solid item. So you've got facts, circumstantial evidence, and you've got witnesses. That forms the knowledge. So the conclusion then is because the probability of it collapsing on you is so low, you've never experienced that, you know of no one to whom that has happened, you do not even think about sitting in the rocking chair. You sit in it without even giving it a second thought. So you trust, you have faith that it will support your weight.
However, if 50% of the time this type of rocking chair collapsed underneath you and you were injured, then the facts, the realness of it all is questionable, or how solid it is and whether it's safe. The circumstantial evidence, perhaps the good manufacturer is now in question even. And then others' reports are all up for question. It's not quite so safe.
So they're unreliable. So now the probability is very high that it could collapse and injure you if you put your faith or trust in this rocking chair, because the facts don't seem to fit what your experience has been. 50% of the times, it didn't matter what it looked like. It collapsed underneath me. And the circumstantial evidence now gets really diminished because who cares at this point? So every decision, what's important to understand here is that every decision that we make in this life is based on probability. Absolute certainty exists only in some of the hard sciences. 2 plus 2 equals 4. So for someone to say, well, I have to have absolute proof that XYZ is the case is going to be very, very difficult in order to prove, particularly when you're dealing with something that deals more with a worldview, your perception of a reality that might not fit the current consensus of what is real and what is not real. So 2 plus 2 equals 4 only in hard sciences, and it's because we've designed the system to operate that way. So to expect your faith to be 100% true, it ain't going to happen.
So authentic recovery from the Christian Science faith system must be intentional and comprehensive.
Look at this
Quote.
this little quote that I picked up from the XCS site. It is really amazing and describes this. Reading these books is empowering, but it also feels like the floor is falling out from under me. I'm getting to the point where I'm uninstalling programming that goes back so far that I don't know what I'm supposed to replace it with or what is left of me if I expunge it.
So this is what I was referring to earlier about the multi-generational issue, is what is there before you embraced or started living this particular worldview? Nothing. You don't know anything else. You don't know what the alternatives are. And it's frightening to be able to think that I have to go out there now and sort through this in a very strange world, even though I speak the same language. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Nobody understands me.
And this is real to you.
Yeah, this
is what's so daunting. If I remove this is my identity.
That's right.
Then what is left of me? So this is where the struggles lie. One, it's difficult to trust yourself. And this results in feelings of guilt, shame, needing to forgive yourself and others of things that either were real or were not real. It's difficult to trust any authority, which results in feelings of condemnation from God. The Bible is only some kind of condemning book. Churches and Christian groups are all places of abuse. You can't trust them. And then difficult to trust others. It results in suspicion, paranoia, anger, isolation, and withdrawal. So you can't trust your folks anymore. You don't trust the Christian Science church. So everything else that is an authority structure like that is up for grabs. So these are the usual symptoms. So fear, the acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real. That creates fear.
Again, for Mary Baker Eddy, how prophetic this was. The time for thinkers has come.
Indeed, indeed.
But she wasn't meaning independent thinkers or people challenging the reality. This is how we are using it today.
So again, from the XCS site, by analogy, it was as if I'd been told all my life that I lived inside a shell and that the stars were just dots painted on the inside of the shell. And then one day, I discovered that there never was any shell, and the stars were actually gigantic, distant balls of plasma. And I could see them just by looking at them. It blew my mind. It continues to blow my mind every day. All I have to do is stop and think to myself, I have direct access to reality, and instantly I'm filled with joy. It's like remembering that I have a superpower.
It's incredible.
So there are two critical principles that, as we begin these workshops, that is important for you to take into consideration because they really are at the very foundation. One is, there's nothing wrong with you. Something was done to you. You're having a normal response in regards to any kind of faith system that somebody else would have if they've been raised in Christian Science. So that's normal. Secondly, you can't change what you don't understand. So this is something that the more you understand, that's why we took the time to go through notitia, assensus, fiducia, because this gives you some real specifics to understand actually what faith is, what real, authentic faith is.
So you were raised in a Bible-based group. You cannot just walk away and not deal with the spiritual dimension. Christian Science and the Bible were used to enslave you to a system and a dead founder, Mary Baker Eddy. You must dismantle Christian Science belief system and hold on to what is good and remove what is bad. This is really a tough thing to do because you're not sure of which is which. Most difficult and painful part of the recovery journey, this whole approach. You can't just walk away from it because it won't walk away from you.
Exactly. I mean, you can walk away from Christian Science, but that doesn't mean the Christian Science is still not operating
That's
inside
right.
of you.
Exactly.
There. And this is true for anyone that comes out of a Bible-based group. You can't, it's the most foundational, most difficult part. You've got to dismantle that system and hold on to what was good and let go of the bad. So Christian Science is a worldview that was the foundation that made sense out of life for you in your formative years. You will replace that foundation with something chosen, thought through, and reliable, or you will by default have something unstable and weak against the storms of life. It's not a matter of whether you do this intentionally or not. You are going to do it, period, because people cannot exist without a worldview. So don't see this as a deficit, the struggle that you have. It's an opportunity that many, many people never fully realize.
As an adult, you have a unique opportunity that most adults who leave cults, or many others in our culture, never embrace. The opportunity to intentionally and rigorously embrace a worldview, a faith system, that can make sense out of your past, give you understanding and peace in the present, and provide solid hope for the rest of your life here and the hereafter even. We would encourage you. We have been doing this for 30 years. We've met many people from all various kinds of groups, situations, and most of them Bible-based, that have really struggled in very serious ways. And as long as you're intentional and you put your mind to it and you get the right kind of support system around you, even though it's difficult to trust in the beginning, but to be able to do that, you will succeed. You will make progress. You will move ahead in your life, and you will have a peace that says, I know I can put my faith in something that's true and real.
So just to give you an example of this, when we were taking residence in the Meadowhaven, we had one fellow that came out of a Bible-based communal group, and we always ran through what to expect, things of that sort. And I remember saying to him, you know, the most difficult task you are going to have, Ben, is to be able to dismantle the belief system that enslaved you, and to hold on to the stuff that was bad, or to let go of the stuff that was bad and to hold on to the stuff that was good. And he didn't understand what I meant by that. He said he heard it, but he really didn't understand it. It wasn't until probably 4, 5, 6 months later that he came down and we were talking. We had an appointment, and he said, I never understood what you meant by dismantling the belief system and how difficult that was going to be. But he says, I get it now. That is hard in order to do. So we want to really encourage you to do that, because in doing so, you can't just throw Christian Science out and say the whole thing was bad. It wasn't all bad. You've got to salvage the stuff that was good. You can't live as if, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of your life never happened. You've got to be able to explain that and integrate it.
And the bigger issue, too, is being able to know that you can trust someone, particularly yourself, in the beginning, to make the right decisions. But also, if you choose to seek out a new faith system, meaning a religious faith system, then you do it systematically and you do it carefully. And you ask for advice, and you seek the input of people that you can trust. And you will find a place where you'll have peace. You will find a place.
Thank you for attending. This is the end of our first workshop. We look forward to seeing you at the next one.